Welcome to A Voice of Reason in Turbulent Times with Pastor Charles Burnett-Morrow. A powerful, practical, prophetic, and progressive commentary about what is happening in our world today.
That's the problem we have in this country, okay? People vote because they think that the president has unfettered ability to go in and do whatever he wants. And that is wrong. That is so wrong. They don't understand that he needs to be able to communicate what he wants to do and why he wants to do it and how that will benefit our nation, to not only members of his own party, but to members of the other party as well, so that he might secure enough votes to get the support of Congress, to get the support of the Senate. And even then, if he is able to get something done with the support of the Senate and with the support of the House, and he's able then and then only to sign it into law, there still is the constitutional muster that it must pass. And if someone challenges in court this new law, then they can pursue that challenge all the way to the Supreme Court. And it is the job of the Supreme Court then to weigh in. Notice the Supreme Court does not weigh in before the law is written, before it is signed into law by the president. No, the Supreme Court is excuse me. Sorry about that. The Supreme Court is an after-the-fact check. Once the law has actually been signed into existence, once it takes effect, those who may be adversely affected by said law are then able to go to court. Okay, they go through the courts, they wind up before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court then determines whether or not this law, listen carefully, based on actual case examples, is able to be supported by the Constitution or is negated by the Constitution. So once the law goes into effect, you see, then basically what it amounts to is you wind up with kind of a little test period. You kind of wind up with a little test run period where this law is actually able to be in effect, and it's able to affect people either in a positive way or in an adverse way. Now, sometimes the law may affect you in an adverse way. However, that is not to say that the law in any way violates the Constitution. So there are times when the Supreme Court will hand down a decision and they'll say, no, this law is acceptable. This law certainly, by our reading, this law certainly is not in violation of the Constitution of the United States, and that law will stand. However, in those instances where the Supreme Court determines that the law in some way is in violation of the Constitution of the United States, either it tramples the liberty of the people, or it tramples upon their freedom of speech, or it tramples upon their freedom to assembly, etc., etc. In those instances, then, they are able to strike down that law. And when that law is struck down, then their decision becomes the law of the land. Okay? This is how the issue of gay marriage, for instance, was able to go through the courts, wound up before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court decided that LGBT people have every right to marry. They have every right. Now, they're not supposed to be a religious body, okay? The Supreme Court is not supposed to be any more a religious body than the Congress is, or the Senate is, or for that matter, the presidency is. So, they're supposed to look at this matter in strictly legal and, dare I say, technical terms. Looking at it in legal technical terms, they decided that LGBT people deserve to have the same built-in protections, the same built-in rights, the same built-in advantages for their committed lifelong relationships as do heterosexual couples. It was not the job of the Supreme Court to decide whether or not gay marriage was moral, whether or not gay marriage was acceptable to society. It was not their job to decide anything concerning gay marriage on religious grounds. So whatever their view of marriage, whatever their beliefs concerning marriage, those beliefs technically are not supposed to enter into their deliberations whatsoever. They're supposed to be looking at things strictly from a constitutional perspective, looking at the law, looking at it technically, and making a decision on that basis. When the Supreme Court made the decision that gay people have every right to enter into lifelong relationships, and therefore they have the right to attain a license through their given state to marry, to be joined. That's all the word marriage means, is to be joined. They use the term marry in plumbing. When you talk about certain pipes or certain fittings marrying into one another, all that means is that they're joined, that they're permanently sealed and joined, okay? So when the Supreme Court made this decision, that became the law of the land. And we had all kinds of people who griped and groaned and said, oh no, Supreme Court can't make a decision like that. They don't make law. Yes, they do, folks. Yes, they do.
A voice of reason in turbulent times with Pastor Charles Burnett-Morrow, speaking truth at a time when truth is in short supply.